Lil Wayne, The Carter 2. Never heard it. So while I was doing research for this album, I noticed on Wikipedia that it said that a lot of the songs were produced by T-Mix and Batman. Now I know who T-Mix is. He's a producer from the early 90s. He worked a lot with 8Ball and MJG. I'm very familiar with him. I don't know who Batman is. Now when I looked on Genius, it said that a lot of the songs were written by Marcus Houston. Now Marcus Houston was a member of Immature, and when the Immature first started out, he went by Batman. But there's no way that Marcus Houston was producing these beats. So if you know who the real Batman is, please leave a comment, and don't say Bruce Wayne. You're better than that. At some point in the mid-2000s, my nephew asked me if I had ever heard of Lil Wayne. And I responded, boy, I've been listening to Lil Wayne since before you was born. And then I realized that my nephew was born in 1999, and I had been listening to Lil Wayne since before he was born. And I felt very old. Now I can't lie, I wasn't listening to him when he was in the Bee Gees. No, not those Bee Gees. Yeah. But I was listening to him in 97 when he was in the Hot Boys. Now at that time, I was more of a fan of BG. Not that BG. Okay. The star of the group at the time was Juvenile, who to this day is criminally underrated as an MC. Now, Cash Money definitely took over for the 99 and the 2000s. But for the remainder of that decade, I wasn't really listening to hip hop. I talk about this a little bit in the Get Rich or Die Trying episode, so you might want to watch that if you want to see the whole rant. But long story short, while I had been listening to him in the late 90s, by 2005, my interest in him had just... Does that say waned? Who is writing this? This album was released shortly after Mannie Fresh had left Cash Money Records, so this is the first album since Bee Gees... I swear to God. This is the first album since the Bee Gees' Chopper City that didn't feature Mannie Fresh's production. So as much as I love Mannie Fresh and as much as I love bounce music, I think not having him on this album gave Wayne a little more breathing room. The first song on this album, The Mob, is a lot slower and funkier than what he's usually rapping over, and he's definitely taking his time on this one. I mean, he spazzes out for 5 minutes straight without a chorus in sight. Fly-In is the actual intro to the album, and I'll talk about the continuing themes between The Carter and The Carter 2 a little later, but I think the album should have just started here. It gets the point across much better and in half the time. So the first full song on the album is Money on My Mind, and I have to admit that the first time I heard this song was when Pusha T used it for his mixtape Fear of God back in 2011. Considering his beef with Lil Wayne, I'm surprised he used this beat, but then maybe I'm not surprised. I mean, you can never tell with Pusha T. And speaking of mixtapes, I only know Fireman because Lupe Fiasco used it for his Enemy of the State mixtape from 2009, where he called it Yoga Flame. This is the first single from the album, which makes sense because it has one of the stronger hooks, which isn't always Wayne's strong suit. The last song was called Fireman, and this song is called More Fire. Get it? The song sounds like it was kind of a cool idea, but by the 2-minute mark, it kind of wears thin. Best Rapper Alive contains a pretty sick Iron Maiden sample, and he uses the "You Better Respect Me" line from Worry Me from 500 Degrees, which is taken from Jay-Z's Girls, 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 which was probably taken from Aretha Franklin's Respect, even though it was originally sung by Otis Redding. Before I move on, can we talk about 500 Degrees for a second? So Juvenile in 1998 releases an album called 400 Degrees, and then he has a fallout with Birdman, and he leaves Cash Money Records. And then Lil Wayne releases an album called 500 Degrees. Fast forward 13 years, Lil Wayne has a fallout with Birdman, and then Young Thug releases an album called Barter 6, which is the greatest karmic circle in all of hip hop. I mean, it's better than when Suge Knight released Chronic 2000. Speaking of Chronic 2000, I'm kind of bummed that we didn't get a Corrupt verse on Locked and Loaded, but oh well. The song Oh Well is Wayne at his best. The beat doesn't get in the way, it just clears the path and he just spits for 3 minutes straight. It's perfect. On Grown Man, Currency kind of sounds more comfortable on the track than Wayne does. And the most interesting about this song is at the very end when you realize that Wayne is hanging out with a girl that has never seen the sunset because he has to explain it to her. Grown man indeed. But he's right back to his murder music vibes on Hit 'Em Up, which doesn't feature a single Tupac reference, which is kind of weird, but it has a pretty great hook. Carter 2 has him rapping over the same track as Fly In. Now this is a continuation from the first Carter, and in case you don't know, the Carter is a reference to New Jack City, so for all you kids that don't get that reference, there you go. So on the first Carter, he had Walk In, Inside, and Walk Out. On this album, he has Fly In, Carter 2, and Fly Out. Instead of calling it Inside Part 2, he called it Carter 2. And for whatever reason, he doesn't continue this for the rest of the Carter series. He just kind of throws it away. But I thought it was a pretty cool idea. So bring it back, Carter 6. Where's the 7? What Carter are we on now? I should look that up. Hustler Music is the second single from this album, and to be honest, it doesn't really sound like a single. I mean, it's a good song, but I don't see why he felt like this should be a single from the album. And I watched the video twice, and I still don't understand what's happening. It's pretty clear that they're trying to tell a story, but I didn't get it. So if you got it, please leave a comment. Receipt is a song that's clearly based on Jay-Z's song Cry, with the Heatmakers doing their best Kanye impression. The third single from the album is Shooter featuring Robin Thicke. The video was loosely based on Walk This Way by Run DMC and Aerosmith, in which two genres of music collide to make one thing, which really isn't the case here, so I'm not sure why they went with that idea. I mean, R&B and hip-hop aren't exactly on opposite ends of the spectrum. The song was originally released on Robin Thicke's debut album, A Beautiful World, where he was just going by the name Thicke, and the song was originally called Oh Shooter and not just Shooter. The song is about Robin Thicke being in a bank robbery when he was a little kid, which is a really cool thing to write a song about. And when you know that, it makes Wayne's addition to this song seem really out of place, because Wayne does not stick to one topic at all. I think it would have been better for them to just create an original song, but they both got a lot of mileage out of this one. I mean, this song eventually ended up on Thicke's second album too. Wheezy Baby has a West Coast beat and he's switching up his flow. I'm not sure I need to hear the song more than once, but it's kind of cool to hear him taking a risk. The beat on D-Boy sounds like Manny Fresh Light, and if I'm being honest, I kind of like Baby's verse better. His uncomplicated flow just sounds better over a beat like this. The album finishes out really strong with Feel Me, Get Over, and Fly Out, which is, for my money, the best run on the album. I completely understand why this album is a classic. If you listen to the Carter or even 500 Degrees, you can see that his lyrics and his flow aren't that much different. I think the reason why this album was so big for him, and I'm sad to say it, is the production. And the production on this one isn't stellar. It's just that it allowed him to go in the direction that he wanted to go in. And by December of 2005, when he went on his mixtape run, it just proved this point even more. And if you're of a certain age, Lil Wayne pretty much raised you. His influence is pretty obvious. It's not hard to draw a line from Lil Wayne to Lil Uzi Vert to Lil TJ. Absolutely, I think this album started out strong, got a little spotty in the middle, but finished out even stronger. So have you heard the Carter? Are you still bumping it to this day? I'm going to keep reviewing albums until I run out. Until then, I'm Free Tillman, the only guy on the internet that doesn't know everything. Peace.